Hello, my name is Taylor Lopez, and this week for week 5 for the class Tourism and Sustainability, we are going to be discussing the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization. I will refer to it as the UNESCO. And it just discusses a little bit more about World Heritage Sites and the list of them. So for the first question, I identified a World Heritage Site, and that one is the Hidden Christian Sites in the Nagasaki region in Japan. It's located in the northwestern part of Kyushu Island. It's a very small property, and it only has 10 villages in it. So within this, there is remains of a castle and a cathedral that archaeologists found out date back from the 17th and 19th centuries. I thought this location was very interesting because it reflects the era of prohibition within the Christian community and religion at this time, even in Japan. And at that time, it was in 1873. So basically, these cathedrals and locations were nurtured by secret Christians that were hiding within the Nagasaki region that wanted to continue their faith throughout the Prohibition period. I also have some photos of the locations provided from the World Heritage Site. So to talk about some potential advantages to a destination if it receives a listing from the UNESCO. To start off, automatically the site gets recognized as a new identity throughout the entire world. And by becoming on the list, it confirms the outstanding and exceptional features of this location. Another thing that's very important when a destination receives a listing is the site gets funded from a global body for protection and conservation and everything like that. So I think from where it begins versus where it starts off with funding and its economic status, it really improves. Also, tourism and publicity I touched upon. They really become much more popular, and it brings international, attention to the site, and that also ensures access to resources, protection, and economic benefits. On this slide, there's also a photo of one of the cathedrals that is still remaining today. So to talk about any disadvantages or dangers that could happen if you list a site. I found that due to the location, there could be danger within just natural disasters and stuff like that. Also, pollution within the tourism expansion. Climate change is another thing that could affect. And within that, like I said, with tourism and all these visitors coming, urbanization. Something I found interesting was once you get on the list of World Heritage, you can be put on a danger list, and that can really determine until improvements are made. But I think the biggest disadvantage and danger in general of just being on the list is really a natural disaster. Other than that, most of it is protected within the areas. And like I said, when you are listed, you want to maintain the right status to be on the list. So mainly you just want to avoid negative aspects to promote and keep everything positive. The next slide, I have a picture of the historic cathedral. This photo was taken by TBS Vision. I found it online on the website that was linked. And then to discuss what environmental aspects are needed or kind of what steps a destination can take to ensure that the sites are protected, I think obviously mainly is to protect the destination itself, but to protect it from human impacts and environmental change. You definitely need people and resources to monitor the site, keep up with the environmental changes, be aware of the environmental changes, really rely on preservation. I think that's something that's very important within tourism attractions. A lot of places have, gates and restrictions on where you can and cannot go throughout the site. And then also I think something's important is just to understand your market. Without understanding your market or, the clientele that you will be receiving at the site, it won't be very easy to help you maintain the human impacts and ensure that you are protecting the site and you stay on the World Heritage List. And lastly, evidence talking about if receiving a listing from the World Heritage Organization, if it has increased tourism volumes. So right off the bat, there's obviously noticeable growth within the UNESCO list. I found one study conducted specifically by someone named Dr. Sally Farron, and there was a quote, and she states, "Meanwhile, according to the World Heritage Center of United Nations, an educational, scientific, and cultural organization, the total of number of World Heritage sites has risen steadily, and it was found that within 6 years, it had risen over 9%. Now, obviously, this is with certain locations, not specifically the one I identified within the Christian sites in the Nagasaki region, but most studies and evidence I found is proven for noticeable growth, but there is a whole section within the website, the organization, that shows the list of locations in danger, and there's 54 of them, so those ones are kind of on the cusp. So I think it really is kind of situational on which location you really are. It's kind of hard to say factually as a whole of every single location on the list. And then lastly, I just wanted to talk about a reporting trend that the website gave me for the specific region that I had. Over the past 15 years, there's been minimum reports of the frequency or the property, insight and all this stuff. So for my specific region, there's no information on it, but looking further into it, there are. So overall, it has shown that obviously the evidence is vital and it does bring people to these locations, but it really is just situational and depends on whether or not the site is maintained well, the danger within the location, the truth of the urbanization of it, and just where the location is itself. So yes, that is the presentation on the hidden Christian sites in the Nagasaki region, and thank you.